What's up everybody, this is the 2024 Subaru Crosstrek. So about the all-new Crosstrek, well, brand new generation here for 2024, and get some really nice improvements. So last year I covered the limited version with its more powerful 2.5 liter engine, and also the wilderness version of the Crosstrek, which is new here for 2024. And those were very good, nice little vehicles, very impressive for what they were. And so now it's time for the premium version here, which is just one step up from the base trim, has the lower 2-liter boxer 4-cylinder engine, a little bit less power, but still a really great value with these starting, right around $26,000, and this one coming in just over $29,000 as tested here with one option package. But anyway, as far as the styling, I think it's really sharp. They did a nice job of updating the styling, making it a little bit sharper and just a little bit more high tech there. You have a larger grille, but you still have like the same great 8.7 inches of ground clearance, which is better than basically everything this competes against. And you have these LED headlights as standard now with the swiveling feature in them, and you also have LED fog lights here on the premium trim. That is one of the upgrades here. I also love this offshore blue color. It looks really nice, kind of subtle, but just something different than the usual grays and silvers and whites and blacks that we usually have, and I really appreciate the little bit of color at least. And you also have some 17-inch wheels coming down to the sides here, and then you also have the raised roof rails here on the premium. That's one upgrade of the premium as well. And then going out to the back there, they did a good job of just again freshening up the styling there, but still making it look very much like a Crosstrek, like it always has. But those new taillights are really nice looking, and the size of the vehicle, by the way, is pretty much the same as the old one. You get pretty much the same amount of space on the inside as well, but just nice little improvements. It's on an updated version of the Subaru Global platform, so you have more refinement, a nicer ride, and a bunch of other things that we'll talk about once we hit the road. But overall, I think they did a great job here on the styling for the 2024 Crosstrek. The interior of the 2024 Crosstrek is going to be a nice improvement over the previous generation, as long as you like touchscreens. If you don't, then this change is going to probably be a little bit annoying. But as far as the main overview stuff here of the vehicle, it's about the same size as the last Crosstrek. So as far as cargo space and rear seat space, all that kind of stuff is going to be very similar dimensionally to the last generation, if you're familiar with that. But anyway, as far as up front here, first off, sitting down in these seats, you have redesigned seats here for the 2024 Crosstreks. They're supposed to have more bolstering and a little bit more padding for longer term comfort, and so far they've been really comfy seats here. I appreciated them also in the limited and the wilderness versions as well. And here with this option package, they're also power seats as well, and have the lumbar adjustment and are just really great seats. They're also heated seats here. That's also part of that option package, not standard on a premium, but nice to have that for sure. Next is the steering wheel here in the premium version, which in the premium you don't even get a leather wrapped wheel. You have to go up to the sport with a bigger engine and all that just to get a leather wrapped wheel, unfortunately. So it's just a plasticky wheel. It's fine though, but this vehicle's as tested price of, again, about $30,000. A little bit unfortunate we don't have a leather wrapped wheel. I also don't love these new Subaru wheels because they're just really cluttered. You have a button for your source to change sources for your stereo. You also have a drive mode selector on a Crosstrek. Just seems kind of silly. You even have paddle shifters here on the back. I don't mind the paddle shifters, but just on the front here, just a lot going on. I mean, you can learn it and get used to it. It's not the end of the world. First world problems here, but other manufacturers just do steering wheel design better in my opinion. But overall, at least it has a good 9.3 grip, nice little 10.2 notches. And then moving on to the gauges here, those haven't really changed much since the last generation. You still have your two basic analog dials. The little tiny screen in the middle there does all your basic information. It's fine. My only complaint with this is that you have the permanently illuminated little warning light there if you don't have all the features of the lane departure alert system on. If you don't want it beeping at you, or you don't want it trying to nudge the steering wheel for you, then you're gonna have to stare at an orange light in the gauge cluster. I hate that. But, just one thing you have to learn to live with if you don't want all the assistance stuff on in a Subaru. They're very pushy with all that stuff. But coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you have this 11.6-inch touchscreen in this premium trim and up. Now, if you go for the base one, you're going to get two 7-inch screens instead. They do basically the same thing. You'll have the top one doing the stereo and the bottom one doing your climate. So, this just kind of connects the two, essentially. And this screen is okay. They've used this screen for several years now. Unfortunately, even in the 2024 model year here, it can be be a little bit sluggish at times. It's not the snappiest out there. The graphics and stuff are okay, but not the best UI design in my opinion either, but it does all the basics just fine. It does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, which is great to have that integration. It's a nice large display here, again, thanks to the screen being so big too. And, tuning radio stations and all that is easy, since you thankfully still do have volume and tune knobs and your other little hard buttons there to change the climate, temperature, and stuff like that. But, really well done. Otherwise, just, wish it would get a little bit of a speed bump, honestly. Then coming down, otherwise, all you have, though, is just your cubby here with a USB-A, USB-C, and an auxiliary jack there, and a good amount of space here. This will be a wireless charging pad if you go for that option. And you also have, nice large cup holders and pockets in the doors here with a nice large bottle holder, and also a center armrest here that has a little bit of padding, but it's honestly kind of firm and kind of cheap feeling here in these lower trims. But anyway, you open that up and you have a nice deep bin in there, so that's really great. The back seat in the Crosstrek is, again, very similar to the last generation, and they do a really good job with space usage. For such a small little vehicle, it's a really nice and roomy back seat. I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have a few inches of legroom to spare, still have a little bit of headroom as well, so totally fine for, reasonably sized adults, I suppose. You have a fold-down center armrest. You also have another USB-A and USB-C jacks back there, but you don't have rear air vents or anything like that. But you do have pockets in the doors there, which is nice, and so overall, a great, nice, roomy back seat for this segment. Cargo space is also pretty good for this segment as well, although I don't think it's the biggest out there. I think the Volkswagen Taos and one or two others might have it beat, but, it's still a pretty wide, pretty long space. I like the little cup holders built into the sides there, and beneath the floor, you will see a spare tire, which is great to still have, and then you also see the nice little Easter eggs there on the scuff plates with the little car and the mountain logos and stuff. Just nice little touches there, just make it a little bit more fun. But yeah, so overall, it's just still a really fine interior. Now it's not going to wow you compared to most of the other competitors that have digital gauges these days and nicer materials. I mean, you still have lots of hard plastic here, and that's the case even for the limited version, which is a little less excusable. But here for this one, under $30,000, it's okay, but certainly isn't going to wow you with this interior like most of the competitors. The Honda HR-V's got padding all over the place. Mazda CX-30 has padding everywhere. There's a lot nicer interiors for this same money in this same segment. But, if that kind of stuff isn't important to you, this Crosstrek interior is going to be totally fine. But let's start up and go for a drive. Here for the premium versions of the Crosstrek, one of the add-ons you do get is keyless access and push-button start. So you have the proximity thing on the doors, so you don't have to dig your key out of your pocket. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the Crosstrek. So the first things you notice here about the 2024 Crosstrek, we have great visibility. You have a nice large windshield, nice thin A-pillars, mirrors off onto the doors, just really great, nice high seating position, of course, with the crossover-ish kind of driving position here you have in these, and great view out of the back as well. So really easy to drive, nice small feeling vehicle, of course, very easy to park, all that. Other things that I really like about the Crosstrek here are you have a really easy to use brake pedal, nice and easy to be smooth with, but feels nice and confidence inspiring as well, being nice and grabby and just reassuring. And throttle response is also pretty good. You have a CVT transmission as standard, and that is the only option now. On the last generation, you were able to get a manual. That option is no longer there, so you're automatic only here for the Crosstreks. Unfortunately, I love manuals myself. I was sad to see it go, but I guess the take rate just wasn't high enough for them to justify keeping it around. So anyway, the CVT does a pretty good job. I mean, Subaru CVT still is a little on the slushier side. It's not quite as direct and natural feeling as some of the other CVTs from other competitors these days, which will do a better job of mimicking regular automatic transmissions. But, still is totally fine as one of these transmissions, especially if you're used to other Subarus. You'll feel right at home here. And if you're someone who is, just familiar with anything in this kind of segment, many of them do also use CVTs. It's totally fine. Not a big deal, but it's not the sportiest feeling thing. Although you do have the paddle shifters, and that will give you, I believe, 8 different steps or stages, kind of like, gears, if you are someone that wants to feel that, but, you have to go and bother with the paddle shifters for that if that's something you want to do. Other things to note here. Well, I have to apologize. There is a rattle in that B-pillar area. I don't know what it is. I've tried pushing and prodding on every single little thing I can do to try and get rid of that. It's rattling. This car, by the way, has just over 10,000 miles on it, so this is maybe a better glimpse at what a Crosstrek with a few miles on it would be like. Hopefully they don't all rattle, but this one is rattling. And I also detected there was a rattle under the dashboard here that comes and goes too. So not sure if that's just this vehicle or if 2024 Crosstreks just aren't screwed together quite as well as prior versions, but make sure that you keep an eye out for that if you're buying one of these new or used. Make sure it doesn't rattle, because that's definitely annoying. But other things here, so since we're on the revised version of the Subaru Global platform, it's going to give you extra stiffness with the chassis, and that allowed them to soften up the ride a little bit while still giving you great handling. So it's a little quieter as well for this new generation Crosstrek, and we'll test that out more as we get up and driving here. And I've been pretty impressed with it already whenever I've done my previous drives in the Limited and the Wilderness. But I put it up into the sport mode here for this SI drive, and let's turn down on this back road and see how it does. It's a furious little engine going and going. And it does okay. So for the base and this premium version of the Crosstrek, you have the 2-liter boxer 4-cylinder engine. It does 152 horsepower and 145 pound-feet of torque, and that gives you a 9.5 seconds 0 to 60 is what Car and Driver got. And it's slow. There's no other way around it. These days, that's not impressive. And, even a lot of the competitors will do, a slight bit more performance. My favorite in this segment, by the way, is the Mazda CX-30. That gives you like 191 horsepower as standard, way more punch, and, a lot sportier. So this is certainly, I would say average at best for this segment, even as far as standard engines goes. And, the bottom line is it's going to be okay if you're just doing around town kind of driving. The only time you're going to ever really run into any issue is if you're merging onto the highway. You need that extra little bit of power. That's going to be where you're going to be wanting for the bigger engine, which is available, like I said, on sport and higher trims. So this one being right around $30,000 to get into the sport, it's going to be about $32,500. So it's about a $2,500 upcharge for that engine. That sport trim doesn't really give you much else outside of that engine with that next step up. So it'll come down to whether or not that extra 30 horsepower, which is all you get, is worth $2,500. Whenever I was spending a week with a Limited, that also didn't feel particularly quick either. And so I struggle to justify even going up to that 2.5 liter unless you're going to go for one of those higher trims and you want some of the things that those trims offer. But I certainly don't think I would personally pay the extra. I mean, this is still totally fine. And it's like I said, neither Crosstrek is fast, so it's just two different variants of slow. It's either slow or slower, but these aren't supposed to be sports cars. It's totally fine. I'd love to see a Crosstrek XT someday. People have been saying that for years though, and Subaru hasn't listened yet, so we'll see if that ever comes. But regardless, it's totally fine. Now, this road that I'm on currently sometimes generates some more road noise. Outside of that annoying rattle, it's actually not too bad. It's pretty refined in here. But anyway, coming up some corners here that I always take, let's see how the Crosstrek handles them. So the premiums here just have 17-inch wheels. You have the higher sidewall tires here. And, it does a fine job with the handling. The great thing with the Subarus is you have their Boxer 4 engine. It's a flat engine arrangement. And so what that means is you're going to have a lower center of gravity. So inherently, you're just going to have better handling because more of the weight is lower down than it is in the competitors with their normal inline 4-cylinder engines. And, so it just means the Crosstreks have always handled really well for the type of vehicle they were, especially with how much ground clearance you have. Usually stuff with this much ground clearance does not handle as well as this does. That's always been Subaru's key upgrade, and the one thing that's a real big selling point for them is they just handle so well for what they are. And this is certainly the same. I mean, obviously the suspension is tuned to be soft, and it's not going to handle super sharp, although you do have the steering rack from the WRX now, so it's a little bit quicker with the steering and a little bit more feel and all that. Yeah, but it's not a giant difference, to be totally honest, compared to the last Crosstrek either. But you also have bigger brakes slightly now for this new version, and also you have an electronic brake booster, so a slightly better feel there for the brakes. But I mean, like I said, the brakes have always felt good in Subarus, and to me this feels very consistent with other Subarus in the past. So I honestly can't even tell the difference between the feel, to be totally honest. But anyway, yeah, handles totally fine. These are also nice light vehicles. That certainly helps. These weigh 3,352 pounds, so nice and light, and that also means they're nice and tossable combined with the small size and stuff. It's just a fun little thing to throw into corners every once in a while, just zip around town in and out of traffic. It's going to do a really good job with all that. And of course, the one other big thing here for Subaru is that you have their symmetrical all-wheel drive system as standard. A lot of other competitors will still make you pay extra for all-wheel drive, and you just have front-wheel drive as standard in those, but this has that all-wheel drive as standard on every Crosstrek, and it also has an X mode function, which will allow you to basically loosen up the all-wheel drive system, so it'll have a little more slip if you're in some rougher conditions where you need to have that extra flexibility there, so it doesn't immediately cut power. So it's nice that it has that. You also have like hill descent control and those types of things as well. And here we go, merging onto the highway. Still in that sport mode, by the way, which basically just gives you quicker throttle response slightly, and I think it changes the transmission tuning a little bit, but honestly I can't even detect much of a difference. But anyway, it's fine. It gets up to speed. I mean, I'm behind traffic anyway here, so I can't go as quick as I usually would go to even merge anyway. And that's the reality for most people, is you're not going to be able to have a clear runway, onto the highway merge anyway, and you're often stuck behind traffic and stuff. So that's why I think this engine's fine, and I think if you're okay with the equipment you're getting a premium, then there's no need to go up and get that punchier engine, because it's not that much punchier anyway. But anyway, now we're out on the highway here, and I'm going to turn on the adaptive cruise control system, which is standard. That's a really nice thing you get as standard here in all 2024 Crosstreks, and so it comes with the EyeSight safety suite of features. And so but I have all this stuff turned on here. It has steering assist as well, so it will do some of the steering for you. Now you still have to have your hands on the wheel for this, but it's going to at least just give you a little bit of steering assistance there, in addition to the adaptive cruise doing its thing, and should really help to give you more relaxed highway driving. But as far as EyeSight, it has been improved for 2024 to have a wider field of view. So that means it'll pick up stuff sooner, and give you better detection of like bicycles, for example, things like that, and just be safer overall. And so it's really great that you do have like automatic emergency braking as standard, all those things. But it is worth noting that the one thing that is still an extra cost option as part of this big option package, which is like $2,200, is that's how you get blind spot monitoring. Blind spot monitoring is not standard, and it's packaged with the rear cross traffic alert, which is also not standard. So I feel like having blind spot monitoring is really nice to have these days, and the rear cross traffic alert. And so the fact that you still have to pay extra for that is a little unfortunate, but most of the other companies don't make it standard yet either, so at least in this segment. So I can't blame Subaru for charging extra for it for now, but I'd like to see that someday be standard equipment to have that blind spot monitoring. But otherwise, we're coming up to a gentle corner here, and let's see how this steering assist works. I'm just kind of hovering my hands on the wheel here, giving it a little bit of pressure so it knows that my hand is still there, but letting it do most of the steering for me here. And, it does a really good job. Subaru system is one of the better ones for sure. It's always given me pretty confident, pretty reliable assistance as far as the steering goes. And that's something that I can't say about all of the other systems. There's been some other systems from other companies that have been a little iffy. This one is usually pretty solid, thankfully. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here so far on the Crosstrek Premium. But thanks to Subaru, I will have this Crosstrek for an entire week. So I'm going to drive around all over the place, and I'll come back and give you guys my final real-world fuel economy, as well as my thoughts on the pricing, how it compares to the competition, and anything else that I noticed here during my week of driving. Alright, so I've been driving the Crosstrek for a week now, and there's a few other new takeaways here that I've had over the week. First off, this stereo is fantastic. For the base stereo, all the past Subarus I've had with the Impreza 2.5 RS and also the limited Crosstrek, the Wilderness Crosstrek, they all had the upgraded stereo. This one doesn't, and I gotta say, I don't know how much better that upgraded stereo is. I have to listen to them back to back to truly say, but this one is really, really good, and personally I would not pay the extra money for a stereo upgrade and going up to those higher trims in order to access that option like you have to do here on these Crosstreks. So one little thing for those of you who enjoy music. One thing for people who just are annoyed by sounds in general though, strangely the rattle by the B-pillar has gone away, but now this one under the dash is like even more apparent, and you can probably hear that. It sounds like something's like dragging on the ground. I don't know what the deal is with that. Again, just make sure that if you're getting a Crosstrek, you test drive it and that it's rattle-free. But aside from that, I actually did a lot of highway driving here this week. So I've put 285 miles on it here over the course of a week, and I would say about 250 of those were on the highway. So a lot of highway driving here, and my final fuel economy average has been 29.1. And these are rated at 27 mpg in the city, 34 on the highway, and 29 combined. So, 29, I guess I should be happy to get that, but I did way more than, a 50 50-50 split for city and highway. Now I was on higher speed limit highways doing, 70 or so. So maybe part of that is, what is dragging it down a little bit. But I was hoping to see, over 30 still, since it was so much highway driving. But, for an all-wheel drive thing that's, by the way, just to like pass someone on a slight uphill grade on the highway, it was revving to 3,000 to 4,000 RPMs. I mean, this little thing works hard. Now, I have to give it credit, though. This CVT transmission, yes, it's slushy, and yes, it's, not the most precise. But what I can say is that it is very responsive. With a lot of modern automatics, you put your foot down, you have to wait a second or two for it to figure out what it wants to do, and then it gives you the response. This, I mean, it is immediate with the response. It's just that it's a slow response. It still has to, take its time to work on your inquiry and then give you the result that you're looking for, because it is just still so slow. But at least, it's starting to work on that job immediately, and so I have to commend it for that. It's, working the hardest it can with what it has to work with, and so I think, it's pretty well optimized, again, for what they're working with here. But, so really, I think overall, it's still totally fine. The last thing to mention, though, is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. Now, as far as pricing goes, these start for the premium trim right around $26,500. This one with this option package, which gives you the moonroof and gives you the heated seats and a couple other things, that bumps the price up to almost exactly $30,000. And so at that price point, it still is a pretty good value, but it's really those cheapest Crosstreks, if you can live with them, where you really think of the best value. Because as far as subcompact crossovers goes, it still isn't the best deal. The Kia Seltos is about $2,000 less, comparably equipped, and that has double, screens. I think they're 10-inch screens in that. And now it doesn't have wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. It's wired, but so that's one little thing that this has is an advantage. But otherwise, I mean, the Seltos, it's been around for a while, but it's still really good as far as space goes, and is going to just be, I think, the best value as far as that stuff goes. But there's a lot of others these days too. Like there's the Hyundai Kona, which is only $800 more. That has the brand new Hyundai Group stuff, and it's got the huge 12-inch screens, double 12-inch screens, and that even has more space as far as rear seat legroom compared to this, and has some advantages here over the Crosstrek as well. In addition to having a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty for that Hyundai and the Kia versus Subaru's doing the usual 5-year, 60,000-mile thing like everybody else. And I still think that my favorite in this segment is the Mazda CX-30. It has a little bit less space, but it has the most power in the segment, over 190 horsepower. It has blind spot monitoring as standard now. All-wheel drive is standard in those as well. And they're very identically priced to this, but you get leatherette seats in that preferred trim that's priced just like this Crosstrek Premium, just a much more luxurious interior. And I think that also the Mazda has the best driving dynamics with a normal 6-speed automatic, great handling, and great looks in my opinion as well, which I know is subjective, but so for me, still Mazda CX-30 still is the best buy in my opinion. Also, if you do like nice plush interiors, the new Honda HR-V has a padding everywhere, super nice interior, drives great as well. Similarly slow, just like this, but those are about $29,500, so actually undercuts this ever so slightly. The last one I do have to mention too is the Subaru Impreza. The regular Impreza also comes in a hatch. It's the same exact interior, same exact amount of legroom and hatch space. It's just that you don't get the ground clearance and the rugged looks. But that's $2,000 less for a comparably, same trim and all that. So you're paying $2,000 more essentially for ground clearance and body cladding and the Crosstrek name instead of the Impreza name. It's just going to come down to your needs, but if you don't absolutely need 8.7 inches of ground clearance or the rugged nature, doesn't do anything for you really, just get a regular Impreza. Save yourself $2,000, get the same exact vehicle essentially. I think that, the Impreza is a really solid buy that honestly I think it's kind of underappreciated and overlooked a lot of times, but the Impreza is a really solid little vehicle, especially at its price point. Cheapest all-wheel drive thing out there, I believe, and it's just a really solid little buy. But anyway, overall, the Crosstrek is still one of the top sellers in this segment, and for good reason. It's likable, it's easy to live with, it drives well enough, and combined with that best-in-class ground clearance and just the go-anywhere vibe you get with Crosstreks, I can see why they're still so popular and still sell so well. And like I said, if it fits what you're looking for, I think there's nothing wrong with just sticking for one of these lower trim Crosstreks. Keep them simple, and don't go for the bigger engine, which is $2,500 extra. I don't think it's fast enough and a big enough upgrade to be a $2,500 upcharge when you're talking about this kind of a price segment. I think, skip the bigger engines, skip the more luxurious stuff, skip the more expensive stereo, go for one of these base ones or, this premium trim. I think those are really where you're going to find the best value in the Crosstrek lineup. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2024 Crosstrek. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Subaru for providing me here with this Crosstrek to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.